Okay, I'm just trying to test the system. I'm not sure if I'm live already. If I am, can please somebody ping me that I'm audible and visible? You can use the chat session. Okay, thank you so much. So let me start then my presentation, and it's right about time to start. Today, I will be talking to you about the Agile project management specifics in managing RPA projects and the virtual global teams. So I've attended some of the previous topics, and I believe that we will have some repetition from the information that was mentioned before. But I really hope that it's just proving my point, and it's meaning that we are sharing the best practices that the industry is providing currently. A little bit about myself. I'm sorry. We will talk about some of the following topics today. So we will discuss about, I'll obviously present myself. I'll be talking about the building the project management framework based on my experience from the IBM Corporation, where I spent some big part of my career. And then I'll be talking about the work I'm currently doing as a freelancer for one of the pharma corporation for Novartis. I will be sharing with you 2 case studies, and through them I will be sharing my lesson learned and the experience I've gained from them, and some of the takeaways and conclusions I made from those 2 corporations. Okay. I would really love to meet all of you guys in some nice conference facilities somewhere around Europe and have coffee there and back, and some of the breaks where we can actually network. But I'm very happy that we have this opportunity to run the conference and to talk to each other, at least online. So great respect to the RPA conference organizational team who was able to do it. And as we are not able to really meet online, offline, and shake the hands of each other, I'm still happy to be here, still happy to meet all of you. So hope we'll have a chance also to connect through the LinkedIn and continue our networking further. I've been leading the RPA project since 2017. That was one of my moves I've made in my career in IBM. That I started to work in project management 10 years ago. So in 2017, from the infrastructure projects I was doing, IT infrastructure, I was working in network projects, in the voice telephone implementation projects. And then I reached my, let me say, last pre-RPA project was in automation and server automation. We were doing the server automation backup. And this was the first time when I've seen the value and when I've seen the beauty of the automation overall. So when the opportunity came to take a lead as a program manager of RPA team for global technology services at IBM Europe, I was happy to join it. At the moment, I'm also leading the projects, RPA projects for Novartis, and typically the budgets, my annual budgets of the projects are above $1 million, so those are quite a big one, global ones, and very challenging. I've been working with the Agile practices. I don't want to call it Agile methodology or Agile, right? I've been using and implementing the Agile practices in project management since 2015. This was approximately the time when IBM started the transformation from the waterfall, from the classic waterfall to the Agile way of work. And since then, I started to implement the Agile in my projects. Due to the, let me say, corporate environment and the fact that I was changing the projects, departments, divisions, then the company, I've made, let me say, I've participated and implemented the Agile practices in project management, well, at least 5 times. So this is something that's I'm quite familiar with, and this is something I would like to share with you. And the last point about myself, I'm also an inventor. This is my hobby. I have 11 patents in the area of machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, and even some 3D printing, wireless charging, drones, and this kind of thing. So this is my passionate. If you want to learn more about it, please feel free to go and check my patents at the patent.google.com. You'll find them there. You have a link on my LinkedIn profile, so I look forward for many invitations after to expand my network, and maybe next year, who knows, in the conference RPA to meet face to face. I will talk now about the RPA project I was doing in IBM. In 2017, I was offered to take a lead and become a program manager for the RPA team of RPA developers, deployment team for the global IT services for Europe. This team was newly built, and when I came there, it was my job actually to set up the project management framework there. I had 5 project managers in my team with the 7 developers, and I have 1 deployment architect, RPA deployment architect. So we needed to basically start from the scratch to build all the processes, build all the documentation, build all the work instructions, role responsibilities, and so on. What was interesting about this team that IBM was present in the RPA area for quite a while, I would say, probably from the beginning. But the way it was done through IBM Global Business Services, so same as most of you guys, so there were a team of consultants who were going on site, working with the IBM customers and automating their business processes. But this is something that we were not doing much indoors, so there were not much initiatives happening for IBM itself. Even we had this teams and teams of the top specialists providing services for our customers. And if our business divisions were more advanced in this, because the RPA is more typical to automate business processes, our IT delivery was not that much impacted. So at some point there was decision made, if we have this cool technology, why not to automate the IT processes as well, not only the business processes. And that's when my team appeared. First, it's appeared in the headquarter geography. First, it started from the US, and then the next one was for Europe. And that's when I came on board to build this RPA deployment team for the IT services automation, IT service process automation. We had multiple projects or multiple bots that we were providing to various teams. So the way we were handling it, the customer for us were the different IT teams that we were staying with them, mapping some of the repetitive projects and processes and building the bots based on their needs. The case that I wanted to present today, it's called Email to Ticket. And this is bot to automate very simple process. So we have the help desk agents who are supporting various our customers. The customers might having some IT problems like forgotten password. They're filling in some template, attaching it as a PDF, sending the email to the help desk. I believe many of you did it multiple times. The way it was working before, the agent would open the ticket, take the PDF attached template, go to the ticketing tool, log the ticket that will then be dispatched to the specific team. What we came to offer them is like why it should be done by the agent when we can easily automate it using the Blue Prism. We can build a bot that will open the same PDF attachment, copy paste all the standard fields in the template that they were standardized already before we came, open log the ticket in the ticketing tool. What was interesting about it is when we started to a little bit expand our think out of the box, that why just to make it basic RPA, let's put some of the new AI APIs, one of them translation API that would take the ticket, but doesn't matter which language it is, because IBM is supporting various companies with the various geographies, so meaning not only English. It could take any ticket, any language, pass it through the translation API, and open the ticket in the ticketing tool in English, because the support is typically done globally and is typically done in English. That's one of the enhancements that we made. And the further steps, we also started to work with the machine learning, so meaning that not only the standard PDFs, standard template was preceded by the bot, but also the free text. The API was able to identify the, let me say, problem that the user was logging, and then open the ticket in the ticketing tool based on this free text in the email. So this was one of the product, one of the bot that we had, and it wasn't provided only to the one team, because the help desk, we're talking about many teams, depend on the customer. Then many customers are supported with the dedicated teams based on geographies. So we implemented this tool by the time I was leaving the company for at least 15 different teams, bringing significant time saving and significant impact on the teams that we provided it for. So this is the case study that I will be sharing at the beginning. I already mentioned that as our choice of the tool was the Blue Prism, and we were pretty much, the moment I came to the team, at the very early, the developers were strictly following Prism steps, right? So the Blue Prism deployment process. That's coming from the Six Sigma principles. So define, work with customer, get their processes, map it, then design the bot based on the requirement. Then they were moving to the build and testing in the loop, depends on the outcome. Then we were going to the user acceptance test, deployment, and then the, let me say, operational support. When I came to the team, I've specified that the team was RPA deployment team. So the way it was designed, and the way it was designed based on the model that IBM by then was using in the US for the IT services, and that they were using for our customers in the business business services, was the way that define stage was done by the architect, by the consultant, who are going on site, sitting with the customer, spending their couple weeks, mapping everything, preparing the PDD, the process design documentation, and only then this PDD was sent to the deployment team. Only then the PDD was provided to the developers, who were basically starting all the cycle, meaning that the developers and the deployment team was not involved in the define phase. And it worked. It worked very well for the business processes when the teams were co-located. Yeah, so when the consultants and architects and customer were sitting in the same city, they were going to the same office, and they were working together face to face during this few weeks period. Well, I'll reach to the challenge that we faced when it came to the IT services, global IT services. As the Blue Prism, as pretty much any development is happening now, of course, the choose of the framework was, I don't like this word. Choose of the way to do the deployment and to do all the process was through the Agile. Just to remind you, this just for the reference. So this is classic Agile. We are running by sprints. We are starting from plan, going to design, develop, test, deploy, and review within the single sprint. Yeah, and then we repeat and repeat. So in the first sprint, we'll deliver the minimal viable product, so something that's working, but like to the minimum extent, and we will continue. This is just to remind you what the Agile principles are about. Yeah, for Scrum, Agile Scrum principles. Okay. The way when I came to the team, so I realized, okay, now we need to map the Blue Prism processes that were given to us. We need to map some project management framework, because this is purely development framework. And I needed to map a little bit this classic Agile to what we were doing in our particular case. Please bear in mind that this is 2017, and this was a few years after the IBM Corporation just started to use Agile widely and to make it as a principles of a choice, meaning that the transformation was still ongoing. because when we're talking about Agile, when we're talking about the company of 400,000 people with the thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s of different teams all over the world, it's not something that's happening overnight. It's not something that's happening in a year, or I would say not even 5 years. It's a slow process. It's very sensitive, and the transformation was still ongoing. So it's not really this pure Agile. We were not implementing the pure Agile, though we were trying hard as we were in the IT services. So it's usually a bit more flexible than the business, as we are not touching any critical processes. Okay. So the way I was able to match it, to map it um, to the what we had at that moment, was that okay, define phase, it wasn't part of my team scope. Okay, and this was the really problematic. As you see, I've highlighted with a brick wall, because we had an architect, we had some of the consultants working with the teams who were located in all different geographies. So the RPA team had located, some people were located in UK, some people were located in Czech Republic that I'm working from, some people were located in India, while the teams we were providing the automation were located, again, starting everywhere from Malaysia to Malaysia, India. It was 16 geographies. And even in Brazil, we had some, right? The teams that were providing the building the bot solution. And they were talking virtually without involving my team, without involving designers, without involving the deployment RP deployment architect, without the involvement the developers or project managers. Well, we are calling them project managers. No, those are not Scrum masters. Those are not product owners. Those are really project managers, due to this fact that we still were passing transformation, and many things we were still doing in the waterfall. All the reporting, planning, roadmaps, and this kind of things we're still doing it in the waterfall. So that's the project managers. Sometimes we were calling them iteration leads, but this just playing with the words, like those were PMs. So by the time the define was completed, the PDD was provided to developers and to RPA deployment architect. And then we were saying that, okay, but this is not doable. This is not doable. This is not clear. This we can do, but completely through other way. Here we need more input. And we were turning it back to the engagement team. So, and unfortunately, this happened almost on every single projects, every single deployment that we had, that we needed to return it back to the engagement team, for they would go back to the, let's call it customer, right? The team that they're performing the automation for, and it was really a huge waste of the time. Originally, our plan was that the RPA deployment of the one single bot for one team would take end-to-end 6 weeks. And it would have taken 6 weeks if the define phase wouldn't be looped in those never-ending clarifications of the requirements that we were facing due to the fact of the two teams were split apart. Then, when everything was clarified, when we had the PDD signed and everything was good, it was coming to us, and we had 2 sprints, 2 weeks each. So we had 2-week sprint, because 3 weeks was not enough for us. 4 weeks was too long sprint. It was hard to manage. Thus, we have 2 sprints for 2 weeks each for one deployment. And here we go. The first sprint was dedicated to design and build and test. This was done within 2 weeks. And second sprint, we were already doing the UAT, the user acceptance test, and deployment. And then it was going to operations, going live, the bot. The way team was built, that the team was so-called, not so-called, we were following the DevOps model, meaning that originally it was planned based on the experience the teams were having for the business when they're working with a single customer, that it will be the same team who will do the deployment and providing the operational support. In reality, it wasn't scalable, because, as I mentioned, we have dozens of the bot and dozens of the location, and the same 7 developers, 1 architect, and 4 PMs, or iteration leads, whatever you call them. And this was just generating more and more work. Something was going wrong with some new change requests were popping up. Somebody was leaving, so some of the information needed to be updated, and the existing bots. Some of the new processes were in place, and this actually was in the time when we was doing the GDPR, so some of the processes were actually changing, and the bots again needed to change while we still had our pipeline of the projects, new projects, new countries, new bots to be deployed. So at the end, it became like a massive monster, that was, we needed to split the team. We needed to split those 7 developers, get more people on board to split the operational support and the development deployment, because it wasn't manageable to be done by the same set of resources. Okay. So there was some successes. I cannot say there were not. Like overall, it was a great journey for this project, for this team. We succeeded to, I think, mainly to find a niche that at least we didn't know by then, that the RPA is not only for the business processes, not only like some reports and the files and the compilations, but it's also very, very useful for IT processes. The longer we were doing it, the deeper in the IT we were going through. So we went to some of the reports of some logs for server, backup logs, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a useful and quite effective tool to use for the automation of the IT processes as well. We were very much playing with all possible additional technologies to merge with RPA, especially using the AI. So for the text, speech-to-text recognition, like speech-to-text was one of our next, let me say, before I left, the next thing that we could also log those tickets through the phone call. So the customer could, not only write the email, but call, explain his problem, then speech-to-text, then the natural language recognition, and then the ticket would be opened by the bot. So you really eliminate the even more work of the help desk agents. So there's many ways how to merge it, and this is what really increases the value of the RPA, that should be like a base for many other things that we build upon. We were very much focused on the deployment efficiency gain and cost saving. So let us, I know that it's not a topic that's very popular, but I just want to be sincere with you. The RPA, the automation is there to cut the costs, to cut the resources. And for this particular project, for this implementation, we were really very efficient in tracking this and making sure that the value we're bringing is actually real, not just on paper, not just a green Excel sheet, but it really brings the reduce of the load of the team, that basically reduces the teams as well. I'm quite comfortable speaking about that because I've seen this tired people who are doing this silly copy-paste things, and this is not what their brains should be used for. It's not a job for humans, it's really a job for the RPA bot, and we made sure that we're helping with it. There was some pitfalls. So as I was explaining, is the main pitfall was about this defined process, not including the developers and the architect, deployment architect. So we were repeating the same all over again by going back without even able to start the process. The scalability, so the lack of the scalable model, the fact that we were working in DevOps environment and we were not able to accommodate all the operational support and the new deployment. So this model was not fitting to the environment we were working at. And the last but not the least, there was a serious decrease in the team's morale, because one of the reasons why we came up with all this new ways, new AI APIs to be integrated in the RPA, because the developers I had, they were quite highly skilled. So they were getting bored. They unfortunately were getting bored of doing the same work, or they were getting bored of this drag and drop with the Blue Prism. They were much higher skills than that. On the one hand, it's bad because we did have certain attrition. We had some developers like losing their motivation. On the other hand, this is why we were able to come up with some cooler technologies and the greater benefits that we could add upon the RPA. But overall, this is something that I'm very cautious of since then. So this was the project we did I was leading for the IBM. Then I went freelance, and for the last 2 years, I'm working for Novartis company as a contractor, as a freelancer. And there we are working on the automation, RPA automation for the payroll, for the HR payroll. There are several processes we're automating for them, but I just will highlight, like, speak about one of them just to give you the feeling what we are doing. And uh, the interesting, the complexity of all this, that we are talking about many countries. We are talking about Novartis, who is located in a lot of countries worldwide, and the scope of this deployment was for 36, 37 countries is currently now. Um, this is due to the fact that those countries, they're, first of all, they're big enough that the locations are big enough, so this automation would actually bring the benefit expected. There is no sense to automate the payroll for the small office of 5 people, yeah, but it does really make sense to automate the process for the office like in China with more than 5,000 employees. So that's the reason of choice. Plus, we needed the country to be already more or less standardized. They do have some standard payroll process, and it's needed to be standardized before we go there. So this particular project was is about it's about the payroll automate the pre-payroll process automation. So there's basically they're having some vendors for the payroll who are tracking the attendance and so on and so forth. Those vendors at the beginning of the month, they're creating a ticket in the ticketing tool that is then taken by the payroll SMEs, uploaded to the ERP system that triggers the beginning of the payroll calculation further. So this particular part that we were automating is to take the ticket from the ticketing tool and create the input for the ERP system. So pretty straightforward. So we were using the ticketing tool, ERP system, plus the messaging, because all this needed to be communicated to vendor that, okay, guys, all is good, and to the agents that, okay, agents, all is good, the tickets are created, they all is handled. This is a monthly process, and this process helps to save approximately 16 hours of work for the payroll SMEs monthly. Uh, it might not sound that much compared to some other projects, but keep in mind that the payroll process itself is taking like 10 to 14 days, because we are getting our salary, sometime at the mid of the month, right? That means, and it can start calculating only at the beginning of the month. So you have like 10 days. Out of the 10 days, we can save them up to 16 hours. That's quite drastic. What we came up with, so when I came, it was also like the team was, there was no project manager, there was no Scrum Master, it was just developers who were doing it. So by the time I came, they completed the design, and they started and they implemented it for 3 countries in whole 2019, out of like 37 countries that we need to implement until the beginning of 2022. So that was quite slow. Said, okay, guys, let's standardize what you're all doing. Let's see what we can do. So what I'm sharing with you, please disregard this like a small font. This is not so relevant. Yeah, what I want to highlight is those 8 steps. So we came up with the 8-step process: process identification, process analysis, design, build an SIT, the acceptance, the IT tests, prior user acceptance tests, tasks, deployment, and after deployment, hypercare. So those are our 8 processes that were taking place through each deployment. We needed to follow each deployment where we have the checklist. This is our more or less project plan, if you call it in the hybrid mode. And this is our epics, if we're talking about Agile. To map it, I wanted to use Agile. Obviously, this is the tool of the choice, but as the company is even further in the steps of the Agile transformation, because here we're touching industry, here we're touching very sensitive business environment. So we cannot be with the transformation fast. And when it's about the payroll, it's a business critical processes. And if we can do the Agile within the IT teams, that's not so easy to be done within the business teams. Okay, so we needed to really play with both of those. But nonetheless, this is for the IT team purely. The way that we mapped it to the Scrum was follow the one that I'm sharing on the screen. So this time we have a 3-week sprint, and this time we have the team of the architects, of the process expert, of the developers, all working together. So there's no this brick wall anymore. We start from the zero and we continue until the deployment itself, and all the process is taking 3 weeks. We merge the process identification and process analysis, as many of the activities can be done in parallel. We have developers involved in this process as well, so in this part as well, and approximately totally is taking seven days. So we are doing it within a week. We are working very closely with SMEs, developers, architects within those 7 days. It usually takes a couple days to design. Even we do have the product ready, we do have the bot for the standard process ready. But please keep in mind, when we are talking about 30 plus countries, each country has their step outs. Each country has their business specific rules, because it might be based on the historical, it might be based on the legal requirements, and still payroll and data, the sensitive, private, personal sensitive data handling. It can be due to different payroll vendors who are providing their input in slightly different way. So we still spend some couple days on the workshops doing the design, where we can adjust our custom product to the country specifics. It takes approximately 12 days to do the build and SIT and the prior UAT task, prepare the environment, move the code from the deployment from the development to the quality instance, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to the 7 days of the prior go live task. Basically, most of it is taking the UAT. Within this UAT, we're trying to put it in the way that if it's one UAT, it's good, so we're passing the test, all is good, everybody are happy. And when the job is done well at the very beginning, when the SMEs are cooperative and they're knowledgeable of the process, it actually happens. It's happened like maybe half of the time that the one UAT is enough. If not, we usually have like 3 days reserved for one UAT, so we have like a 1 day UAT, then they have 1 day, the SMEs to gather the feedback and provide us the feedback. And then we have 1 day for developers to make any changes based on the feedback. Okay. After this, we would go to deployment. We'll prepare all the documentation for the handover and for the go live, all the approvals, and we're going live with the bot. So of course, this is the blue sky scenario. If something goes wrong, we're returning back, we're looping, this all going to the second, third, fourth, whatever, how many iterations it needs to happen. Yeah, but this is the sprint for one iteration, and after we are having 2 months of the hypercare, after deployment hypercare period, when the deployment team is closely working, observing, we're implementing changes, we're prioritizing this particular country before handing it over to the operations. So this is approximately the way we're doing it now. Okay. What went well? Since we implemented this model from the 10 weeks of the deployment, of the RPA deployment, we reduced the time for 3 weeks. It works 70% of the cases. Like there is 30% of the cases when something went wrong and we need to repeat iterations. But even in the 30% of the cases, after 3 weeks, team would have some kind of minimal viable product, some product that they can use for some of the part of the process automation. So it's not like that we are leaving them with empty-handed. We do provide them the product that they can already start using to the minimal extent. And then we're repeating until we get the full automation. It's also changed the roles responsibilities. Now everybody know what to do, when to step in. So this is the good thing. When I came, it was a bit fuzzy, especially from the sides of the SMEs. They were not on board on this. They didn't see enough success stories. They didn't believe in it. Plus, I think it was mentioned already today on some of the sessions, it really takes them time during their busy period. What was beneficial for us for the payroll, I mentioned that the cycle itself is approximately like up to 2 weeks when they have a lot of work, when they don't touch them. But then they have rest of the 2 weeks, they're more or less available. So we needed to plan our deployments in the way that the process identification and process analysis can be done only during those 2 weeks of them not having the payroll cycle, not running the payroll cycle, simply because they're not available for so many hours for us. And the UAT, that's obviously we cannot do within the same time as in 3 weeks. The UAT we're planning as early as advanced as possible. So it takes approximately 4 or 5 hours for the SME to participate in the UAT and to validate the output. And this slot we are pretty much blocking for them, like, months in advance, so they know even it's their busy time. But this slot they would have it blocked for us. It's not always working perfectly, of course, but it did brought the 10 weeks average deployment time to 3 weeks with the understanding of everything. What is also important is the customer, or what we would call customer, so the country that we are providing the deployment is part of the team. Unless this is the case, well, it didn't work. It didn't work before, so it's not something that they should hear once in a few months. This is going and like, it's there. No, all the participants of the process are the part of our daily stand-ups. All the participants during those 3 weeks deployment time. All the participants are having the assigned activities, and they're now making sure they're following those activities. We're using the Microsoft Teams, so it's very easy to collaborate with all of them to go and just to move the sticky notes when activity is done. Plus, we reach the effective resource utilization, so developers now they know when to do what. So it's like the deployment is happening sprint by sprint. It's a very flawless. We reduce the waste. We're having minimal waste that we can have for now, the time waste. What can we do better? Well, at some point when the organization will complete the transformation, of course, it should be pure agile instead of this hybrid agile that I would call, while we're having the agile for the deployment and we don't have it for all the rest, for the deployment team, and we don't have it for all the rest. That's why I'm a project manager, not a Scrum Master, product owner, or iteration lead, or whatever you want to call it. We do have the pipelines, we do have the project status reports, we do have the schedules. I'm using the Microsoft projects in the same waterfall way, but we are trying to merge it as much as possible with the agile. So at some point it should move to the pure agile. The operating model readiness, that's another story. So for now, it's still within the same team, the team of the vendors that were working of the contractors. And how it's going to be working in the operation model, we're still working on it. We still have a year ahead of our project to run, and this is not something very obvious. For now, all we can do is to keep the knowledge, keep all the documents, keep all the work instructions. And the next point is dependency tracking. As it's such a global big project, there is always something happening in the country parallel. There's always something happening with the tools in parallel that is creating us a trouble. So here, the best case scenario is to use the safe agile, where we can manage all the projects parallelly at the same time with the good dependencies. But we're still to get there. So safe would be solution here, not yet. And as I see the time is a little bit getting closer to the end, I'll speed up slightly. So the takeaways that we would have from here, that I would have from those years of experience, is that the customer should always be part of the team. And customer, would it be SMEs in our case? Would it be the team's representatives? But it's not only within the developers to do the job, it will fail. It needs to be the team's work, okay? The second takeaway I would like to highlight is the hybrid PM methodology approach during the organization transformation. When we're working in the big organizations, we cannot just rush with our agile and say, okay, now we're agile. No, we are not. The organization is having their business priorities, the organization is having their structures, but it doesn't mean we should not implement agile practices. There's many valuable agile practices that we can incorporate into the classic waterfall methodology. And they're not one against another in the sense that there are many things that can support each other. So we need to really be flexible here and to find this way of running this hybrid agile. The value tracking for RPA is also very important. We are doing it for a reason. We're doing it for the business values, and those should be tracked. There should be very clear either KPI or reporting that after we finish our deployment, we need to see why we did it, if we're able to provide the value to the business that we originally promised, and the business would be able to return back the investment to the RPA. The sustainable model, so what happens to the RPA after the deployment team leaves, how it will be tracked, who will take over, what will be the logs, what will be documentation, top priority. And I would say to increase the RPA value by merging various technologies. Now we are having more and more development of the machine learning, more and more development of AI. That should be elaborated. We need to know about it. We need to use it. Okay. So with this, I'll be finishing my presentation. Once again, I look forward to the invitation for the LinkedIn for we can continue any of those discussions. And I hope you enjoyed the session. So I will be now ready to answer your questions. Let me know if you have any. So for now, I see one. Okay. Dan, thank you for the question. And the question is why the agile approach to automation drives RPA at scale. It's about, I hope I've answered it already before, but it's about the speed of the delivery. So we can go waterfall, we can spend weeks and weeks and weeks clarifying one single aspect or small aspect, small step out, small business rules that are appearing, and then spend the weeks and weeks until we deliver the solution. Or we can, we can run a sprint, we can deliver a minimal viable product. The team is already working with it. They have some basic automation, and we continue working. We don't stop. We continue working, adding whatever their requirements would be more on top of it to provide the full automation. So that's where agile is the catch. Plus, instead of agile is also helping to work with the less resources, as we're having the same team, we're having the same team of developers, same team of the process expert, our process architect, that they have the knowledge, they keep the knowledge. We don't need to extend to cross team setup. So I would say that the efficiency and speed would be the key that agile is giving to us. Another thing is that is changes that we are happy to accommodate, because when you start to work with them process with SMEs, they will tell you something that, okay, this is our process, this is how we like it, this we want the bot to do. But as we're working with them on the process mapping to the bot, they start to see, but okay, we can improve here and there, and we can do this better. And what if the bot can do this? Okay, for this we need to change our process. Let's change our process to make it more effective, or we can add it to the bot. And this change management as well, that the agile triggers, that we are happy to take it, especially as part of the hypercare when the most of automation is done already. This is also very, very having very high price. So I hope I answered your question. Okay. Would there be any other questions? Any other comments maybe? Okay, if not, then thank you for attending. Thank you for staying with me, and I wish you to have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.